So yeah, I honestly was not going to dignify the Marcus Rashford rumors at all, but these stemmed from a report by an actual reporter, Ben Jacobs, who's a guy who's in the know, and he's the one who I saw bring this up.
Yep.
So if Ben Jacobs brings it up, that isn't like an aggregator account that has no credibility. That is a real reporter. I'm not saying that means that Rashford to Seattle has any legs. I am just saying it's like a real rumor and not like just some guy on Twitter firing, you know?
Yeah.
So Ben Jacobs, this is just what he said. Just reporting what he said. Said there is, quote, a real appetite to bring Rashford to MLS, believing his arrival could have a similar impact to that of Lionel Messi at Inter Miami.
LOL.
And that conversations about a possible move have been held internally at Seattle Sounders. So I was watching the clip where Ben Jacobs was talking about this, and he was basically saying
MLS has an appetite for Rashford. I'm not so sure that he'd want to go there.
The reason that Seattle stood out as a potential destination and that they've been talking about it internally just as, you know, floating the idea is because of the Club World Cup. And I guess part of what he was saying comes into play is the amount of money that he said Seattle stands to generate just for participating in the Club World Cup, which
not correct, by the way. I want to say
the bag he was talking about is
40 to 60 million. Not
that is
happen.
Nothing to what I've heard they're going to get for being in it. They're going to get some money for that, though.
Yeah,
but anyway,
like at least a couple.
His point was whatever the amount of money they get from that could theoretically negate whatever budgetary concerns would play into that. That is according to Ben Jacob. What should we talk about with this? I mean, it's not going to happen.
I mean, I think we should couch it all with this is not going to happen ever. Period. For multiple reasons. One, it doesn't. In the summer, there's not going to be a spot for him. There's not going to be a spot for him. He's not going to be able to come here. It doesn't matter.
But you do know that
MLS is going to give us a Marcus Rashford rule.
They did it for Dempsey. They did it for Messi. They find ways to do these things.
I'm just saying a Marcus Rashford. Is he a Messi-esque or Dempsey-esque player?
I mean, he's for sure like on the Dempsey tier. This guy has 60 caps for the England national team and was at one time considered like one of their best up and coming young players. Like Dempsey was great, but like I think Rashford is a different. Especially because he's also 27.
I mean, he would definitely be. I'm not saying he would be a bad signing. I just think it's like you're gonna change league rules again.
They would. That's what I'm saying, though. They would.
I don't know, man. Well, you're the MLS insider right here, so you know. I mean,
like when there's an opportunity to bring a player of that type of profile to the league, whether it's Seattle or anywhere else, they tend to find ways to make it happen. I don't know if it would be Apple TV funneling him some money or what it would be, but like I think it's more about would the player want to come here and could they make it happen more than like the budgetary concerns. I think they would work around that.
Yeah, I just don't see it ever happening. I mean, he had 20 goal contributions last season in the Premier League. He's 27.
That's sort of how I feel about it. Like
there's not a bag in the world. He just turned down multiple offers from Saudi that were going to be, I mean, that's going to pay you more than MLS ever will be able to pay you. And I'm sorry, like I love our Garden Shed League, Ari. I would do anything for our Garden Shed League, but we're just that. We are not the Premier League. I would never compare us to that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think the idea would be like changing perception, push the league forward type of, that would be their thinking behind it.
I mean, sure. But
I'm not saying that that's what would happen. I'm just saying that's the thinking behind it.
I think in a vacuum, the idea that the Sounders would get some sort of league assistance to help them be incredibly competitive in the Club World Cup is actually a valid like hunch. I think that that's the more interesting conversation around this is less about Rashford, but more about like, oh, maybe the Sounders are going to utilize the Club World Cup to be able to get some sort of change and some sort of massive player on their roster without having to spend, which then you have the Sounders are broke agenda group will be rolling on that.
I don't know. I mean, it would be cool. Like Rashford to MLS would be obviously a huge story. Rashford to Seattle would be sick, I think. I mean, he's definitely a great player. I do think like as far as being more competitive in the World Cup, to me, it's more like this is when people are talking about we need to make we got the Club World Cup coming up. How could we not make signings to there's no signing that you could make that's going to put your roster in a place where you're making like a run at the Club World Cup. Like I just don't, it's not gonna, I would not go into the Club World Cup as a fan like expecting that, you know, even they could sign Marcus Rashford.
Right.
And I don't think it would make, I really like not sure it would make that big a difference for their chances at the Club World Cup. There's just, even with that, there's just too big a gulf in roster spend between them and the teams that they're playing.
I mean, yeah, it's not even, one signing is not going to make you competitive in the Club World Cup. I mean, I think that it could maybe move the needle a little bit, especially if it's a player of that caliber. But like, yeah, there's just let's get back down to earth. We're gonna have fun watching the Club World Cup. We get to participate. We get some money. It's gonna be the second one we're ever in, and we're still the only team that has ever legitimately qualified twice out of MLS. So I mean, there's a lot to be. I mean, you know, I think overall on this idea though is it is cool that we're still linked with these kind of signings. Like Seattle is a massive club. It's funny. It's like, you know, people want to say, oh, the Seattle's value in the name recognition market and all of that. Come on. We're getting linked with Marcus Rashford. We're massive.
I'm down to perpetuate that narrative, even though I question how hot this link really is. All right.
Ben Jacobs, come on the show.
Ben Jacobs, come on the pod.